Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
We're not out of the woods yet. Every state in the country is still vulnerable to restrictions and lockdowns due to the lingering pandemic, currently wreaking havoc overseas. But for those lucky enough to start going back to work, well, what does that look like? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Many businesses are adopting a hybrid work from home and work in the office model. If you're thinking of doing the same, how do you make it work? And how do you ensure your staff are performing at their best, no matter where they are? Psychologist Alison Hill, CEO of Pragmatic Thinking, answers exactly that in her new book, Work From Anywhere, The Essential Guide to Becoming a World-Class Hybrid Team. Once COVID becomes a distant memory, whenever that will be, will we all go back to the office? Or is working from home here to stay? As Alison Hill tells Chris Ashmore, the evidence might surprise you.
The great experiment that has been COVID-19 has been this kind of forced work from home. The surprising side effect of the experiment is so many organisations are talking about the level of productivity that came as a result of people working from home or working outside of the office environment. Research saying, and there's different reports in different areas, but it consistently is around that 75% of people, when asked, have a preference of being able to work in a hybrid fashion. So that really is the choice of having some time working from home and then having opportunities to connect with team in an office environment. So I believe it's here to stay.
In that case then, is working from the office, is that kind of broken?
I don't know that the office is broken, but it is really important. Sometimes with hindsight bias, we can believe that the office was better than what it was. So I think it's important to remember that disengagement scores were still high, even having people in an office environment. One of the reasons why we might want to get people back to an office space or coming together is around connection, and yet plenty of people went to work surrounded by their colleagues and still felt lonely and disconnected. So the environment is not the thing that creates connection. It can be about the intention that we can create. Because if we're getting everyone back into the office, but then we're just putting them into a room and doing death by PowerPoint or reading them a memo we could have emailed, then we're missing the opportunity to create a better experience at the office. And what will happen, and certainly what is happening with teams that I've connected with, is they're coming into the office and it's boring and I'm actually less productive and I feel worse for it. Then, of course, I'm going to put forward the case to, can I work from home and feel like at least I'm contributing, I'm getting things done, as well as I'm spending more time with my kids, I'm getting out and exercising more because I don't have the commute. So there's benefits both ways.
Well, in your book, you pose the theory of working from anywhere as actually a better way of working. Can you explain?
Look, what we're talking about here is probably a selection of work. So it's not all work. There are some jobs that we physically need to be there. A surgeon can't do, although technology is changing and there will come a time where they can be anywhere. But your local barista, if you go to a coffee shop, if they're not there physically making the coffee, you're asking questions. So obviously we're talking about knowledge-based workers or workers who have the capability to still be productive, still be able to contribute, but it's not tethered to a physical location. And so what we talk about from the philosophy that work from anywhere can be a better way of working really comes down to this sense of choice. And we talk about a framework. So working from anywhere is not just about doing anything you want wherever you want. It is still work and there is still outputs and outcomes that need to happen. A lot of leaders some of their fear about not having people in the office is, how do I know if they're working? How do I know if they're actually delivering what needs to be done? And so the very first part of that framework is performance. Let's have conversations around what performance means and looks like, and what needs to be delivered by when, and get really clear on that expectation. The next part of that framework is culture. How are we connecting with each other? How are we connecting to a sense of belonging with the organisation? But then the third part, and this is the greater opportunity of embracing a hybrid work model, is that there can be greater autonomy. If I don't have the commute and if it fits into my world and I feel like I'm much more productive between 6 and 8 a.m. in the morning and my role allows me to work then what working from anywhere allows you the autonomy to do your best work in a way that best suits your energy, your life, and your level of creativity. So we know then that helps with output, it helps with mental health, it allows people the autonomy to maybe go and do something in the middle of the day that actually re-energizes them to come back in to the afternoon. And so when we talk about the philosophy that work from anywhere could be better, it allows that autonomy of each of us to be able to think about how do I best work and how can I bring that to the way that I work.
Mazars is an international audit, tax and advisory firm committed to helping clients confidently build and grow their businesses. Experience a new perspective with Mazars. Visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.
When it comes to junior staff or new employees to a company, are they disadvantaged at not being physically in the office and learning from their peers or from their mentors or senior staff on a daily basis?
Look, what you're alluding to is there is a lot of non-verbal communication, there is a lot of cultural nuances that happen that aren't necessarily wrapped up into an induction process. Things that kind of happen through just osmosis, through being around, hearing how people talk, seeing how they interact after a meeting. So some of that, basically what that does is that changes for a manager, a leader or HR professional who's setting up that induction and welcoming someone into a team. It's actually also thinking about how do we induct them into some of those cultural nuances. So we've had a number of people join our team. One of the ways that we've actually helped to bridge that gap is we have 5 values in our organisation, and so we will choose 5 members of the team and they'll have a one-on-one video catch up with the new team member. And they'll share with them what that company value is. And inevitably through that conversation, they'll get to know each other more. Often that's where those conversations around what happens if I turn up late? Is it okay if I, have my lunch break at 12 or 12:30? Those kind of more informal questions around culture and how we do things around here seem to happen when we allow time and actually make it part of their job for both the existing team member and the incoming team member to actually come together and talk through. The second part of it, as we talked about with hybrid teams, is it's not an absence of ever coming together. So when we are, and so for some teams it might be once a week, for some teams it might be once a month. There might be other teams where it's every 6 months. But when we are coming together, again, allowing time for people to connect, to have that informal time. It doesn't always have to be agenda-filled and structured because it's the breaking of the bread. It's the time that we can come and gather that informal kind of questions and people can pick that up in different nuances. So it's using the time together really well, but also then manufacturing those more informal questions and informations around the culture, how that culture works around here.
And what tools do you use, Alison, at Pragmatic Thinking to get the work done while working from anywhere?
The ones that we use for a project management tool, we use monday.com, and that allows us to set out particular projects, all the tasks in those projects, who's allocated to those tasks, dates on due dates, and then any communications connected to those tasks. Trello is a very, very useful one, and there are different ways that you can lay them out. Asana is another tool that does that same methodology. So that's our project management tool. We also have a social snaps channel. We have a rhythm in our team which we call Seize the Midday. And so we encourage everyone in the team at midday or around then to get outside, to go and do something and take a photo and share it with the team. And so we want to actively celebrate and encourage stepping away from work. And that might sound counterproductive for a CEO to say, get outside and let's celebrate that. But we've had everything from people roller skating, going for a swim, going for a surf, sometimes just sitting out in the sun and having lunch. We have lots of pets, so sharing, having lunch with dogs or with family members and sharing that as well. So a lot of that kind of social connection happens on Slack. The other collaboration tool, so one of the challenges that hybrid teams are finding is how do we collaborate? The platform that we use is a tool called Miro, M-I-R-O. That is a very sophisticated whiteboard. You can set up models, you can set up spaces, and people put post-it notes. So they can drag post-it notes around, you can move other people's post-it notes, you can add ideas. And again, we've used it both with our clients where we might do focus group kind of conversations as well as internally with our team. And the lovely thing about it is you can have that traditional kind of brainstorming or collaboration, ideation experience utilising this tool. But because it's open after the meeting is finished, people can come back in. Often you get ideas afterwards or you think, we should have added that or we missed that component. So leaving that open for a day or two allows people to keep those ideas going, keep that creativity going.
That was Pragmatic Thinking co-founder and CEO, Alison Hill. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.